If you cannot control your anger, you are already controlled. Think about that for a second. Every time someone insults you, ignores you, betrays you, and your chest tightens, your voice rises, your thoughts spiral, ask yourself who is really in control. Marcus Aurelius wrote that you have power over your mind, not outside events, yet most people live the opposite way. They allow traffic, comments, co-workers, and strangers to decide their emotional state, and the cost is always the same. Lost respect, lost energy, lost peace. The brutal truth is that anger feels powerful, but it is weakness disguised as strength. Neuroscience shows that when anger spikes, your rational brain shuts down and you become reactive instead of strategic. One emotional reaction can destroy relationships built over years. Seneca called anger a brief madness, and madness never builds empires. But what if anger could be mastered instead of suppressed? What if there were ancient rules used by emperors and philosophers who faced betrayal and humiliation, yet remained unshaken? In this video, you will learn the 7 Stoic rules to destroy anger and upset forever, and by the end, you will never react the same way again. Part 1. The illusion of anger. Imagine this. It is dawn in Rome. The marble is cold beneath bare feet. The air is silent except for the faint crackle of oil lamps. Marcus Aurelius is already awake, not because he must, because he chooses to be. Before the empire wakes, before the generals argue, before the senators whisper, he sits alone with a simple truth. Today someone will test him, someone will insult him, someone will misunderstand him, and he already knows this. He wrote it down. When you wake up in the morning, tell yourself, the people I deal with today will be meddling, ungrateful, arrogant, dishonest, jealous, and surly. Let that sink in. He expected difficulty, not because he was negative, but because he was realistic. And realism is the first weapon against anger. Now pause with me for one breath. Inhale slowly, hold, exhale longer. Say it quietly. Anger is expectation colliding with reality. Say it again. Anger is expectation colliding with reality. That collision is what we are dismantling in this series. Most people believe anger is strength, but data tells a different story. Neuroscience shows that during anger, the amygdala hijacks rational processing in under 0.2 seconds. Your body floods with cortisol and adrenaline. Heart rate rises, blood pressure spikes, and in that moment, IQ measurably drops. You feel powerful, but cognitively, you are impaired. The Roman emperor understood this without brain scans. He understood that reacting in anger weakens judgment, and a ruler who loses judgment loses everything. Marcus faced betrayal, wars, plagues, political sabotage, yet historians record him as calm, deliberate, measured. That is not personality. That is discipline. Here is the uncomfortable truth. Anger feels righteous because it protects identity. When someone criticizes you, the brain interprets it like a physical threat. Studies show social rejection activates similar neural pathways as physical pain. So when someone disrespects you, your nervous system responds as if attacked. Anger is a shield, but shields are heavy, and if you carry them all day, you grow exhausted. So ask yourself honestly, how many of your recent arguments were truly about justice, and how many were about ego preservation? Pause. Breathe again. This is the first reset. Anger is not about them. It is about what you are protecting. Marcus wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." Notice he did not say you have power over other people. He said your mind. That is radical, because it means anger is optional, not the sensation, but the story attached to it. Let me tell you a short story. A general once brought Marcus news of a senator speaking against him publicly. The court expected fury, punishment, retaliation. Instead, Marcus asked one question. Did he speak from knowledge or ignorance? That question changed everything. Because if from knowledge, perhaps correction was needed. If from ignorance, education was needed. Neither required rage. Rage would only expose insecurity. Now let's bring this into modern life. Imagine your boss criticizes your work in front of others. Instantly, your chest tightens. Thoughts race. How dare he? But apply Stoic clarity. Fact. He criticized the report. Interpretation. He disrespects me. Identity reaction. I must defend myself. Do you see the layers? Anger grows in interpretation, not in fact. Reset with me. Inhale, hold, exhale, say it. Facts are neutral. Stories create emotion. Again, facts are neutral. Stories create emotion. Marcus did not suppress emotion. He observed it. He treated anger like a messenger, not a commander. That is the illusion. Anger pretends to be authority, but it is only a signal. Let me shock you with something else. Research in behavioral psychology shows that venting anger actually increases future anger frequency. When you justify rage, neural pathways strengthen. You train yourself to explode faster next time. So when culture tells you to let it out, be careful. Expression without examination becomes addiction. Marcus chose examination. Every night he reflected. What did I do wrong? What did I do right? What could I improve? That daily audit reduced emotional volatility over time. Not overnight, over years. Stoicism is not instant calm. It is systematic training. Now here is a powerful exercise. The next time anger rises, delay labeling it as anger. Instead say, I am experiencing activation. That small shift removes drama. Language shapes perception. Perception shapes emotion. Marcus once wrote, "The best revenge is not to be like your enemy." That line is misunderstood. It does not mean be passive. It means do not allow their behavior to dictate your character. If someone lies, do not become reactive. If someone shouts, do not become noise. If someone insults, do not become small. Another reset. Breathe. Say with me, I refuse to let others rent space in my mind without permission. Again, I refuse to let others rent space in my mind without permission. Anger often masquerades as control, but look closely. When angry, you are controlled by the trigger. Inner peace is not softness, it is sovereignty. And here is the paradox. The more you need to be respected, the easier you are to manipulate. The more you crave validation, the more fragile you become. Marcus, Emperor of Rome, wrote private notes reminding himself he was mortal. That humility disarmed ego, and ego disarmed anger. Before we move into Rule 1 in the next part, let me leave you with this mental image. Picture yourself holding a burning coal to throw at someone else. Who gets burned first? This ancient Buddhist metaphor aligns perfectly with Stoicism. Anger harms the carrier before the target. So here is your challenge for today. For 24 hours, observe anger without reacting immediately. Just observe. Count how many times expectation collides with reality. Write it down if possible. Awareness precedes mastery. In the next part, we begin Rule 1. We will dissect the true trigger behind anger and expose the illusion that others cause your emotions. And once you see that clearly, something shifts permanently. If this already made you think differently, subscribe to Making Life Better and comment one word that describes how you usually respond to anger. Honest answers only. Awareness is power, and power is calm. Take one more breath with me. Inhale, hold, exhale slowly. This is the beginning of mastering inner peace. Part 2. Rule 1. Name the true trigger. Rome is louder now. The sun has risen. The Senate is restless. A man storms into the hall with accusation in his voice and insult in his tone. Eyes turn toward Marcus Aurelius. Everyone waits for reaction. This is the moment most men fail, not because they lack intelligence, but because they lack awareness. And here is the first Stoic rule that destroys anger at its root. Name the true trigger, not the surface event, not the loud words, the real trigger. Pause with me. Inhale slowly, hold, exhale longer, say it quietly. Anger is never about what just happened. Again, anger is never about what just happened. When that senator insulted Marcus, what was actually happening? Words were spoken. Sound waves vibrated air. That is the fact. But the reaction was not to sound waves. It was to meaning, and meaning lives inside the mind. Modern neuroscience confirms something the Stoics understood 2,000 years ago. The brain reacts to perceived threat, not objective threat. In laboratory studies, when participants believe their social status is threatened, their stress response activates even if no physical danger exists. The body cannot distinguish between insult and injury when identity is involved. This is why a single comment can ruin your entire day. Marcus knew this. He wrote, "If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it." Your estimate, not the thing. Let that land. Most people say, "He made me angry." Stoicism says, "I interpreted what he said as a threat." That shift is power. Now here is the uncomfortable part. The true trigger of anger is rarely disrespect. It is vulnerability. It is fear of looking weak, fear of losing control, fear of being insignificant. Say it with me. Fear hides behind anger. Again, fear hides behind anger. Let me give you a modern example. A colleague interrupts you in a meeting. Instantly, you feel heat rise in your chest. You think, how dare he? But ask the Stoic question. What exactly am I protecting right now? Is it justice, or is it the image of competence you want others to see? The interruption triggered not rage, but insecurity. And insecurity, when exposed, becomes anger. Marcus trained himself to dissect these layers. Imagine him after the Senate session. Instead of replaying the insult, he would ask, "Why did this disturb me?" Not to blame himself, but to understand himself. Here is a practical exercise. The next time anger rises, do not say, "I am angry." Say, "I am protecting something." Then ask, what am I protecting? Status, control, reputation, certainty. Once named, the emotional storm weakens. Pause. Breathe in. Hold. Exhale slowly. Awareness dissolves intensity. Psychologists call this affect labeling. Studies from UCLA show that when you label an emotion precisely, activity in the amygdala decreases. Simply naming what you feel reduces emotional charge. The Stoics practiced this without MRI machines. They journaled, they labeled, they reflected. Marcus might say, "I feel threatened because I value respect." That statement transforms chaos into clarity. Anger without clarity is wildfire. Anger with clarity becomes information. Now here's something even deeper. Sometimes the trigger is old, not present. Childhood experiences of being ignored, past betrayals, old humiliations. When someone today raises their voice, you are not reacting only to today. You are reacting to memory layered beneath it. Say this slowly. My reaction is bigger than the moment. That realization changes everything. Marcus endured political betrayal from men he once trusted. Instead of erupting, he asked whether his pain came from expectation. The Stoics warned against expecting virtue from those who have not trained themselves in virtue. Expecting wisdom from the untrained is self-sabotage. In modern terms, if you expect emotional maturity from someone who has never practiced emotional discipline, you are setting yourself up for anger. Reset, inhale, hold, exhale. Say it. Lower unrealistic expectations, reduce anger. Now let us talk about ego. Ego is not confidence. Ego is fragile identity. When ego is strong, anger is quick. When identity is secure and anger slows. Marcus wrote personal reminders that he was mortal, temporary, one human among many. This humility protected him from ego-based rage. Here is a sharp truth. The more you need to be right, the easier you are to provoke. Test it in your life. Notice how quickly you react when someone questions your expertise. That speed reveals attachment, and attachment fuels anger. But naming the trigger gives you leverage. Imagine someone insults your intelligence. Instead of reacting, you think, "I am feeling protective of my image." That awareness creates a gap, and in that gap, freedom appears. Freedom is not the absence of anger. It is the ability to observe anger without obeying it. Marcus understood something modern performance psychology confirms. Elite performers train under stress to build emotional regulation. Soldiers, athletes, surgeons practice scenarios that provoke pressure so their nervous systems adapt. Stoicism is emotional stress training for daily life. When you name the trigger, you step outside the reaction loop. You move from participant to observer. Let us go deeper. Anger often masks a violated value. If honesty matters deeply to you and someone lies, anger surfaces because a core value feels attacked. In that case, the trigger is value protection. That is different from ego protection. Stoicism does not ask you to ignore values. It asks you to respond rationally to defend them. Say this with me. Protect values, not ego. Another breath. Inhale, hold, exhale slowly. Here is your daily training drill. For the next week, carry a small notebook or use your phone. Every time you feel irritation, write one sentence. Trigger blank. Then fill in the blank honestly. Fear of embarrassment, desire for control, need for recognition. Patterns will emerge. Awareness builds mastery. Marcus wrote daily reflections in what we now call meditations. Not for publication, for self-correction. That practice built internal stability. Remember this, anger thrives in vagueness. Precision destroys it. When you say, they disrespected me, that is vague. When you say, I fear being seen as incompetent, that is precise. Precision reduces drama. Here is a shocking statistic. Chronic anger is linked to increased cardiovascular risk by up to 19% according to longitudinal health studies. This is not philosophy alone. It is biology. Unexamined anger damages the body. Marcus faced plagues and war. He did not need additional internal war. Neither do you. Now we transition. Naming the true trigger is step one. But naming alone is not enough, because even after you identify the trigger, interpretation still fuels emotion. In the next part, we will break down Rule 2, separate facts from interpretation. This is where mental discipline becomes surgical. Before we close this part, take one final breath with me. Inhale deeply, hold, exhale slowly. Say this quietly. I choose awareness over reaction. If this rule exposed something uncomfortable inside you, that is growth. Comment one word that describes your most common trigger. Just one word. Status, control, respect, security. Naming it publicly strengthens accountability. Subscribe to Making Life Better if you are committed to mastering inner peace at the root, not just managing surface emotions. In the next part, we sharpen the blade, because once you separate fact from story, anger loses its oxygen. Part 3, Rule 2, separate facts from interpretation. The Senate chamber is tense. A rumor has spread. A whisper moves faster than truth ever does. A general claims Marcus hesitated before battle. The implication is weakness. The air thickens. Eyes scan his face, searching for reaction. And here is where most men collapse under their own thoughts. Not because of what was said, but because of what they think it means. This is Rule 2. Separate facts from interpretation. Pause with me. Inhale slowly. Hold it. Exhale longer. Say it quietly. Facts are neutral. Interpretation creates emotion. Again, facts are neutral. Interpretation creates emotion. What is a fact? A fact is observable, verifiable, concrete. The general spoke. That is fact. Words were heard. That is fact. But the interpretation might be, they see me as weak. I am losing authority. I must defend myself immediately. And there, anger ignites. Marcus Aurelius understood this distinction instinctively. In his private writings, he reminded himself again and again, remove the judgment, and you have removed the thought I am hurt. Remove the thought I am hurt, and the hurt itself is removed. Think about how radical that is. The Stoics did not deny pain. They denied automatic storytelling. Modern cognitive behavioral therapy is built on this exact mechanism. CBT teaches patients to identify cognitive distortions, catastrophizing, mind reading, personalization, all interpretations masquerading as facts. Let us bring this into your life. Your partner does not respond to your message for hours. Fact, there is no response. Interpretation, they are ignoring me. They are upset with me. They do not value me. Emotional result, anxiety turns to irritation. Irritation turns to anger. But what is real? Silence. That is it. Say it slowly. Silence is not rejection. The brain fills gaps with narrative, and narrative fuels emotion. Marcus lived in a political environment where rumor could spark civil war. If he reacted to every whisper as truth, the empire would burn. And here is the deeper psychological layer. The human brain evolved to detect threat quickly. It assumes negative intent faster than positive intent. Studies show that ambiguous facial expressions are more likely interpreted as hostile than friendly. This negativity bias once protected survival. Today it fuels unnecessary anger. Reset with me. Inhale. Hold, exhale slowly. Say it. Not every threat is real. Again, not every threat is real. Here is an exercise that will change how you respond to conflict. The next time something triggers you, divide your thoughts into two columns mentally. Column 1, facts. Column 2, story. Example. Your boss says, "We need to talk about your performance." Fact. Those exact words were spoken. Story. I am about to be fired. I am failing. I am not good enough. Notice how the emotional intensity comes entirely from column 2. Marcus would mentally strip the event down to its bare structure. A man spoke words, that is all. From there, he chose response rather than reaction. Here is a powerful statement. Interpretation is optional. Say it with me. Interpretation is optional. You might say, but what if the interpretation is correct? That is not the point. The point is, you do not need to assume it before evidence appears. Anger often arises from assuming certainty where uncertainty exists. Consider a common situation. Someone cuts you off in traffic. Fact. A car moved in front of you. Story. They disrespected me. They think they are superior. Emotional outcome, or rage. But alternative interpretations exist. They did not see you. They are distracted. They are rushing to a hospital. The point is not to be naive. The point is to recognize multiplicity. When only one interpretation feels possible, anger becomes inevitable. Marcus wrote, "Choose not to be harmed and you will not feel harmed." That line is not denial. It is cognitive discipline. Neuroscience supports this. When individuals consciously reframe a situation, prefrontal cortex activity increases and emotional reactivity decreases. You can literally calm your nervous system by adjusting interpretation. Another reset. Inhale deeply. Hold. Exhale slowly. Say it. I questioned my first story. This is not weakness. This is mastery. Let us go deeper into the emotional architecture of anger. Anger is a secondary emotion. Beneath it lies hurt, fear, shame, or frustration. Interpretation connects event to identity. Identity fuels anger. If someone criticizes your work, the fact is criticism. The interpretation might be, "I am incompetent." That threatens identity. Anger emerges as defense. But if you separate fact from identity, you gain space. Marcus would ask himself, is this within my control? If yes, improve. If no, release. That binary eliminated emotional waste. Here is a practical drill. When triggered, say out loud internally, "The fact is," and state it precisely. Then say, "The story I am telling myself is," speak both clearly. The contrast often reveals exaggeration. Many conflicts dissolve once interpretation is questioned. Now consider long-term anger. Resentment builds when stories repeat. They always do this. They never respect me. Those words always and never are interpretation amplifiers. Say this quietly. Always and never are red flags. Marcus dealt with betrayal from trusted allies. He could have built a narrative of universal disloyalty. Instead, he assessed individuals and circumstances separately. Interpretation magnifies pattern. Facts isolate event. Another breath. Inhale. Hold. Exhale. Calm clarity is strength. Here is a statistic to consider. Studies on relationship conflicts show that couples who reinterpret partner behavior more generously experience 30% lower long-term resentment. Generosity in interpretation correlates with stability. Stoicism is not about passivity, it is about precision. If someone repeatedly disrespects you, the fact of repetition becomes evidence. Then boundaries are rational, but premature interpretation leads to premature explosion. Marcus did not rush to emotional verdict. And here is the hidden benefit. When you stop over-interpreting, your mental energy increases. Chronic anger consumes cognitive resources, it narrows attention, it reduces problem-solving capacity. By separating fact from story, you conserve strength. In the arena of your life, this is your shield. Clarity. We are not done yet. Even after separating fact from interpretation, emotion can still surge. Because speed remains an issue. Reaction is fast. Reflection is slower. In the next part, we will enter Rule 3. Delay the reaction, not the decision. That is where timing becomes your ally. Before we close, take one final breath. Inhale slowly, hold it, exhale fully, say it clearly. I am not my first thought. Comment one word that describes a story you most often tell yourself during conflict. Rejected, disrespected, ignored, threatened. Awareness weakens distortion. Subscribe to Making Life Better if you are serious about mastering inner peace at a surgical level. In the next part, we slow down time itself. Part 4. Rule 3. Delay the reaction, not the decision. The messenger's voice is sharp. The accusation is direct. The room waits for Marcus Aurelius to answer. Every second stretches. This is the moment where anger wants to move faster than thought. The blood heats. The pulse rises. The mind screams, respond now. Defend yourself. Assert dominance. But Marcus does something that looks simple and feels impossible. He waits. Rule 3 is this. Delay the reaction, not the decision. Pause with me. Inhale slowly. Hold. Exhale longer than you inhaled. Say it quietly. Speed feeds anger. Space weakens it. Again. Speed feeds anger. Space weakens it. Modern neuroscience explains why this rule works. When triggered, the amygdala activates in less than 200 milliseconds. The rational brain, the prefrontal cortex, takes longer to engage. If you react instantly, you are acting from survival wiring, not wisdom. But if you insert even a few seconds of delay, cognitive control reactivates. Studies show that a 6 to 10 second breathing pause significantly lowers emotional reactivity. 10 seconds can change your life. Marcus did not rush. He understood that time is a weapon. Reaction is impulse. Decision is strategy. Let that distinction settle. Reaction is immediate. Decision is deliberate. Most people confuse the two. You can decide firmly without reacting emotionally. That is power. Imagine someone publicly criticizes you. Instinct says fire back. But Marcus would lower his gaze slightly, breathe once, and allow silence to sit in the room. Silence is uncomfortable. And in that discomfort, authority shifts. Reset with me. Inhale. Hold. Exhale slowly. Say it. I control my tempo. Tempo is everything. In boxing, the fighter who controls rhythm controls the fight. In conversation, the person who controls tempo controls emotional direction. Marcus knew that if he reacted instantly, he would be predictable. Predictability invites manipulation, but calm delay confuses aggressors. Here is something few people understand. Anger seeks immediacy. It wants resolution now. It wants dominance now. But wisdom understands that immediate emotional release often creates long-term regret. Research on impulsive decision-making shows that delayed responses correlate with higher long-term satisfaction and reduced interpersonal conflict. In fact, emotional delay increases measured relationship stability by significant margins in behavioral studies. The Stoics practiced voluntary discomfort to strengthen this muscle. Cold baths, simple food, delayed gratification. Why? Because discipline in small discomfort builds capacity in larger emotional storms. Let us apply this practically. Next time you feel anger spike, do not speak. Do not text. Do not send the email. Instead, perform the Stoic 10-second protocol. Inhale slowly through your nose for 4 seconds. Hold for 4 seconds. Exhale for 6 seconds. Repeat once. Then ask one question. What action will I respect tomorrow? This question collapses impulse, because tomorrow's version of you sees more clearly. Say it with me. Tomorrow's clarity matters more than today's heat. Marcus faced generals who wanted immediate retaliation. He understood that delay is not weakness. It is evaluation. Here is a powerful reframe. Delay does not mean avoidance. It means preparation. You are not postponing confrontation. You are upgrading it. Anger often convinces you that if you do not respond immediately, you lose power. But in reality, delayed response often increases leverage. Consider negotiation research. In high-tension negotiation, the party who pauses more often is perceived as more powerful and confident. Silence signals control. Marcus embodied this instinctively. Reset. Inhale deeply. Hold. Exhale slowly. I act on decision, not reaction. Now let us go deeper psychologically. Anger feels urgent because the body enters fight mode. Heart rate increases, muscles tense. But if you measure the physiological wave of anger, it typically peaks and subsides within 90 seconds, if not reinforced by mental storytelling. 90 seconds. The problem is not the initial surge. The problem is the repeated replay. Delay breaks replay. Instead of escalating the internal narrative, you interrupt it. Imagine a heated argument with your partner. Words are sharp, emotion is high. If you pause and say calmly, "I need a moment," you shift the trajectory entirely. That single sentence can prevent years of resentment. Marcus wrote, "How much more grievous are the consequences of anger than the causes of it?" Think about that. The aftershock of anger often exceeds the trigger. Another breath. Inhale, hold, exhale slowly. Calm is strength. Here is something uncomfortable. Many people resist delay because they equate calm with submission. They believe immediate aggression proves strength. But true strength is the ability to endure internal tension without collapsing into reaction. The Stoics trained for that. Marcus lost children to illness. He faced plague across the empire. If he had allowed every grief to become rage, governance would crumble. Instead, he practiced measured response. Here is a drill you can start today. Practice micro delays in minor irritation. If someone interrupts you, pause before replying. If someone sends a frustrating message, wait 10 minutes before responding. Train the muscle when stakes are low, because in high-stakes moments, you will default to your training. Say it slowly. I train calm daily. Another key insight: delay creates perspective, and perspective dissolves ego. When you wait, you ask better questions. Is this worth my energy? Will this matter in 5 days? 5 months? 5 years? Marcus frequently contemplated mortality. When you remember life's brevity, minor insults shrink instantly. Reset, inhale, hold, exhale. This will pass. Delay also protects relationships. In longitudinal studies, couples who practice timeouts during arguments report significantly lower divorce rates. Timeouts are Stoic delays by another name. You do not suppress emotion, you regulate it. There is a difference. Suppression buries anger. Regulation processes it. Marcus processed emotion privately before acting publicly. Imagine the discipline required. Here is the hidden secret. When you delay reaction, you send a signal to yourself. I am not controlled by impulse. That self-signal builds identity, and identity shapes behavior. The more often you delay successfully, the more you see yourself as composed. And composed people become harder to provoke. Anger loses its target. Now we approach the transition. Even with delay, there remains another layer. Because sometimes anger arises from assuming malicious intent, and that assumption fuels escalation. In the next part, we enter Rule 4. Assume ignorance before malice. Before we close, take one final breath with me. Inhale deeply. Hold. Exhale slowly. Say it clearly. I choose timing over impulse. Comment one word that describes how you usually respond when triggered. Immediate, explosive, silent, defensive. Subscribe to Making Life Better if you are committed to building emotional authority, not emotional chaos. In the next part, we dismantle the most dangerous assumption behind anger. Part 5, Rule 4, Assume ignorance before malice. The rumor spreads faster now. A senator has twisted Marcus Aurelius' words in public. The distortion is obvious. The tone was intentional. The insult subtle but sharp. The court murmurs, surely now he must respond. Surely now he must punish. Surely now he must demonstrate power. And yet he does something almost unthinkable. He asks himself one question. Was this done from malice or from ignorance? Rule 4 is this. Assume ignorance before malice. Pause with me. Inhale slowly. Hold. Exhale longer. Say it quietly. Most harm is confusion, not cruelty. Again. Most harm is confusion, not cruelty. Here is why this rule is transformative. Anger escalates when you assume someone meant to hurt you. The moment intention is interpreted as hostile, the body prepares for battle. But if you question the assumption, the emotional fire loses oxygen. Modern psychology calls this the hostile attribution bias. Studies show that individuals who frequently assume malicious intent in ambiguous situations experience higher levels of anger, stress, and relationship breakdown. The bias does not protect you, it isolates you. Marcus Aurelius lived in a world where betrayal was real. Political assassination was not theory. And yet in his private reflections, he reminded himself, whenever you are about to find fault with someone, ask yourself this: what fault of mine most nearly resembles the one I am about to criticize? That is radical humility. Instead of instantly labeling someone as evil, he examined whether ignorance, insecurity, fear, or misunderstanding could explain the behavior. Reset with me. Inhale, hold. Exhale slowly, say it. I question my assumption. Imagine someone interrupts you mid-sentence. Instinct says disrespect, but pause. Perhaps they are anxious. Perhaps they struggle with impulse control. Perhaps they misunderstood your pause as completion. Ignorance is far more common than malice. Say this slowly. Not everything is personal. Your mind, however, loves personalization. When someone walks past without greeting you, interpretation jumps to, they are ignoring me. But alternate realities exist. They did not see you. They are preoccupied. They are grieving something invisible to you. Marcus understood something essential about human nature. Most people act from limited awareness, not calculated cruelty. This does not mean people are incapable of harm. It means harm is often born from emotional immaturity, not strategic evil. And here is the dangerous trap. When you assume malice prematurely, your response becomes disproportionate. You escalate what might have dissolved naturally. Pause. Inhale deeply. Hold. Exhale slowly. Say it clearly. I do not assume hostility without evidence. The Stoics believed in rational examination. Evidence matters. Consider workplace conflict. A colleague fails to deliver work on time. Interpretation 1. They are lazy and disrespectful. Interpretation 2. They are overwhelmed and embarrassed. The first fuels anger. The second invites conversation. Which interpretation leads to stronger outcomes? Research in organizational psychology shows that leaders who default to curiosity instead of accusation reduce team conflict significantly and improve performance metrics. Curiosity stabilizes systems. Accusation destabilizes them. Marcus ruled not through intimidation, but through steadiness. Now let us go deeper. Sometimes people genuinely harm you. The Stoics were not naive, but the rule is about sequence. First, assume ignorance. Investigate. Observe. Then conclude if evidence supports malice. Reversing that sequence guarantees anger. Say this with me. Clarify before condemning. Another breath. Inhale, hold. Exhale slowly. Calm inquiry is power. Marcus once faced a governor who mishandled provincial affairs. Instead of humiliating him publicly, Marcus sent private correction. Why? Because public punishment often creates defensiveness. Correction with dignity invites growth. Assuming ignorance preserves dignity. And here is the deeper emotional advantage. When you assume ignorance, your nervous system remains regulated. When you assume malice, your body enters combat. Combat consumes energy. If you spend your life fighting imaginary enemies, you exhaust yourself. Let me share something uncomfortable. Sometimes we assume malice because it flatters the ego. If someone harms us intentionally, it means we are important enough to target. But if harm comes from ignorance, it means the world is not revolving around us. That humility reduces drama. Say it slowly. The world is not attacking me personally. Another reset. Inhale deeply. Hold. Exhale slowly. There is a Stoic discipline called sympathia. It means recognizing that all humans are interconnected and imperfect. When you see others as struggling participants rather than villains, anger softens. Imagine someone criticizes you harshly online. You can respond with fury, or you can imagine that person typing in frustration, loneliness, or insecurity. The emotional landscape shifts instantly. This does not mean you tolerate abuse. It means you respond proportionally. Boundaries still exist. Marcus wrote, "The best revenge is not to be like your enemy." If someone lashes out blindly, do not mirror blindness. Now here is a powerful mental tool. Replace the word enemy with untrained. Say it, they are untrained, not evil. When a child throws a tantrum, you do not assume malicious strategy. You assume developmental limitation. Adults are often emotionally untrained children with authority. This realization changes how you experience conflict. Reset. Inhale. Hold. Exhale slowly. Say it clearly. I respond with clarity, not assumption. The cost of assuming malice is long-term resentment. Resentment is anger preserved. Studies link chronic resentment with increased anxiety, depression, and even immune system suppression. Carrying imagined hostility damages you more than the other person. Marcus governed during plague and war. He could not afford unnecessary internal conflict. Neither can you. But here is the balance. If repeated behavior proves harmful intention, boundaries must follow. Stoicism is not passivity, it is discernment. First inquire, then assess, then act calmly, not the other way around. As we move forward, we begin to see the structure emerging. Name the true trigger. Separate fact from interpretation. Delay the reaction. Assume ignorance before malice. But there is still something deeper. Even after adjusting assumption, anger sometimes persists because identity feels threatened. In the next part, we enter Rule 5. Remember your role. Before we close this part, take one final breath with me. Inhale deeply. Hold. Exhale slowly. Say it clearly. I seek understanding before judgment. Comment one word that describes what you most often assume when triggered. Disrespect, betrayal, attack, neglect. Awareness weakens hostility. Subscribe to Making Life Better if you are serious about mastering inner peace without losing strength. In the next part, we anchor identity so firmly that anger has nowhere to attach. Part 6, Rule 5. Remember your role. The chamber is quiet now. The accusation has passed. The insult lingers in memory. But Marcus Aurelius does not ask, "How do I defend my pride?" He asks something far more dangerous. What is my role in this moment? That question changes everything. Rule 5 is this. Remember your role. Pause with me. Inhale slowly. Hold. Exhale longer than you inhaled. Say it quietly. My role defines my response. Again, my role defines my response. Most anger erupts because we forget who we are supposed to be. Marcus was emperor, but before emperor, he was a man. Before man, he was a rational being. Stoicism teaches that identity anchors behavior. If you anchor identity properly, emotion cannot easily destabilize you. When insulted, most people react from ego. But ego is unstable. It shifts with opinion. Role, however, is chosen. Let that sink in. Role is chosen. Ego is reactive. Marcus wrote, "At every hour, give your full concentration as a Roman and a man to doing what's in front of you with precise and genuine seriousness." Notice what he emphasizes. As a Roman, as a man. He reminds himself of his role before he acts. Now apply this to your life. When someone provokes you, ask one question. Who am I choosing to be in this moment? A leader, a partner, a parent, a disciplined mind? Reset with me. Inhale deeply, hold, exhale slowly, say it clearly. I respond as the person I choose to become. This is identity-based discipline. Modern psychology supports this approach. Behavioral science shows that when individuals tie actions to identity rather than emotion, consistency increases dramatically. Saying I am someone who remains calm is more powerful than saying I should calm down. Marcus did not ask whether he felt calm. He asked whether calmness fit his role. Anger tries to shrink you into reaction. Role expands you into responsibility. Consider a father whose child speaks disrespectfully. Reaction says, yell back. Role says, teach. The role reframes the situation. Consider a CEO criticized publicly. Reaction says, defend aggressively. Role says, maintain composure for the stability of the organization. Marcus governed an empire under threat. If he reacted emotionally, thousands would suffer consequences. Your life may not be an empire, but your reactions influence your family, your colleagues, your community. Say it slowly. My behavior influences more than I see. Another breath. Inhale, hold, exhale slowly. One reason anger feels so powerful is because it narrows perspective. You see only the moment, but remembering your role widens perspective. Marcus reflected daily on mortality. When you remember life's brevity, petty conflict loses weight. Role connects you to something larger than ego. Here is a powerful exercise. Before entering environments where you anticipate conflict, define your role clearly. For example, in this meeting, my role is calm clarity, or in this conversation, my role is patience. Pre-definition reduces emotional chaos. Research on implementation intentions shows that when people pre-commit to specific behavioral responses, emotional regulation improves significantly. Stoics practiced this centuries earlier through morning reflection. Marcus began his day preparing for difficult people, not with resentment, with readiness. Reset with me. Inhale deeply. Hold, exhale slowly. Say it clearly. I prepare, not react. Let us go deeper. When you forget your role, you become reactive identity. You become the offended one, the attacked one, the misunderstood one. That identity feeds anger. But when you remember your role, you become stable identity. The teacher, the leader, the disciplined one. Stable identity dissolves chaos. Marcus faced generals who doubted him. Instead of proving strength through anger, he demonstrated it through steadiness. Authority is calm under pressure. Here is something critical. Anger often arises when reality does not match your self-image. If you see yourself as respected and someone challenges you, anger erupts to protect image. But Stoicism asks you to detach from fragile image and attach to enduring role. Image is external. Role is internal. Say it slowly. I protect my role, not my image. Another reset. Inhale, hold, exhale slowly. In modern leadership research, emotional composure is consistently rated among the highest predictors of trust. People trust those who remain grounded under stress. Marcus embodied this. Now consider personal relationships. In conflict, ask, what does my best self look like here? That mental image anchors behavior. Visualization activates neural patterns associated with desired conduct. Athletes use it. Leaders use it. Stoics use reflective visualization to prepare for adversity. Role is visualization in motion. Here is a drill. Before responding in anger, pause and imagine your older self watching this moment. Would that version of you approve of the reaction you are about to choose? Say it clearly. I answer to my future self. Marcus frequently wrote to himself as if instructing a student. That self-mentorship built internal authority. And here is the paradox. The more deeply rooted your role, the less fragile your ego becomes. And when ego softens, anger loses its hook. But remember this, role does not mean suppression, it means alignment. If your role includes protecting boundaries, then calm firmness is required. Stoicism is not passivity, it is disciplined action. As we move forward, the structure strengthens. Name the trigger, separate fact from interpretation, delay reaction, assume ignorance. Remember your role, yet there remains another transformation, because anger can become energy, and energy can be redirected. In the next part, we enter Rule 6. Turn anger into training. Before we close, take one final breath. Inhale deeply, hold, exhale slowly. Say it clearly. I choose responsibility over reaction. Comment one word that defines the role you want to embody under pressure. Leader, parent, warrior, teacher, calm. Subscribe to Making Life Better if you are committed to becoming unshakable from within. In the next part, we convert emotional fire into disciplined strength. Part 7, Rule 6, Turn anger into training. The battlefield is silent after the clash. Dust settles. Armor is dented. Blood dries in the cracks of stone. Marcus Aurelius walks slowly across the field. He has seen betrayal. He has seen fear. He has seen men lose themselves in rage. But here is what separates him from the rest. He does not ask, why did this happen to me? He asks, what is this training inside me? Rule 6 is this. Turn anger into training. Pause with me. Inhale slowly. Hold. Exhale longer. Say it clearly. This is training. Again. This is training. Anger is raw energy. It is not inherently evil. It is activation. It is intensity. The problem is not the energy. The problem is direction. Marcus understood something modern performance psychology confirms. Stress and growth are connected. The body adapts to pressure, the mind adapts to difficulty. But only if pressure is interpreted as challenge rather than threat. Research shows that individuals who view stress as growth stimulus demonstrate better cardiovascular response and greater long-term resilience. The same biological surge can weaken you or strengthen you depending on interpretation. Reset with me. Inhale deeply. Hold. Exhale slowly. Say it. I choose growth. Marcus faced war on multiple fronts: political sabotage, personal grief, plague across the empire. If every emotional surge became resentment, he would have broken. Instead, he converted frustration into discipline. Let me explain something powerful. When anger rises, you are being shown exactly where you lack control, where you are impatient, where you are insecure, where you crave validation. That is not humiliation. That is a map. Say it slowly. Anger reveals my weak spots. Most people want a life without irritation. Stoicism trains you to use irritation as a sharpening stone. Imagine someone speaks condescendingly to you. Immediate anger. But instead of exploding, you think, good. This is patience training. The situation transforms from threat to gym. Every irritation becomes a repetition. Every insult becomes a rep. Every delay becomes endurance training. Athletes do not curse the weight for being heavy. The weight is the point. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." That is not poetic language. That is operational philosophy. The obstacle is not interruption, it is opportunity. Pause again. Inhale slowly. Hold. Exhale longer. Say it clearly. The obstacle is the way. Modern neuroscience confirms something similar through neuroplasticity. Neural circuits strengthen through repeated activation under controlled stress. When you consciously endure frustration without reacting destructively, you literally rewire emotional regulation pathways. Anger handled consciously builds discipline. Anger handled unconsciously builds destruction. Marcus treated emotional discomfort as training for virtue. Now let us make this practical. The next time someone provokes you, say internally, "This is a resilience rep." That single phrase changes physiology. It activates cognitive framing. Framing shifts outcome. Here is a deeper layer. Anger often hides a desire for control. You want the world to conform to your expectation. But the Stoic path trains surrender to reality while strengthening self-control. That paradox builds inner steel. Say it with me. I cannot control events. I can control response. Again, I cannot control events. I can control response. Marcus did not control the plague. He controlled how he governed during it. You cannot control others' tone. You control your composure. Let us talk about emotional endurance. Studies in delayed gratification show that individuals capable of tolerating short-term discomfort for long-term reward achieve significantly higher life satisfaction. Anger tempts you towards short-term release. Training builds long-term strength. Imagine two versions of you. Version 1 explodes in traffic, releases tension instantly, feels justified, but repeats pattern daily. Version 2 breathes, endures, observes, gains mastery. Over a year, which version is stronger? Reset. Inhale deeply, hold. Exhale slowly. Training is repetition under stress. Marcus practiced voluntary discomfort to simulate hardship. He would wear simple clothing, eat basic food, sleep modestly. Why? To remind himself that comfort is not required for stability. When anger arises, it is a form of discomfort. Instead of rejecting it, lean into it calmly. Observe it, measure it, endure it. This builds emotional callus. There is something else. Anger often signals that a value matters to you. If injustice angers you, that value can guide disciplined action. Stoicism does not eliminate passion, it refines it. Transform anger into constructive energy. If you are angry about personal weakness, train harder. If you are angry about disorganization, build structure. If you are angry about disrespect, embody dignity. Energy redirected becomes power. Energy released blindly becomes chaos. Marcus embodied redirected energy. Even during military campaigns, he wrote reflections reminding himself not to hate the enemy, but to understand human frailty. That is strength beyond impulse. Now here is a hard truth. If you remove every difficulty from your life, you remove growth. Say it slowly. Without friction, there is no strength. Another reset. Inhale, hold. Exhale slowly. Think of every irritation today as a micro gym session. The slow cashier, patience rep, the critical coworker, ego control rep. The delayed outcome, endurance rep. When you adopt this mindset, anger transforms into opportunity. You become unbreakable not because life softens, but because you harden wisely. Marcus did not ask for calm circumstances. He built calm character. And here is the turning point. Even after converting anger into training, there is one final step to complete mastery, because training builds strength, but forgiveness builds freedom. In the next and final part, we enter Rule 7, forgive without reopening the door. Before we close this part, take one last breath. Inhale deeply, hold, exhale slowly. Say it clearly. I grow stronger through pressure. Comment one word that describes the skill you most need to train. Patience, discipline, humility, boundaries, courage. Subscribe to Making Life Better if you are committed to becoming emotionally unstoppable. In the final part, we remove the last chain anger holds over you. Part 8, Rule 7, forgive without reopening the door. Night falls over Rome. The oil lamps burn low. The palace is quiet. Marcus Aurelius sits alone once more. Not as emperor, not as commander, not as ruler of men, but as a man confronting his own mind. He has been insulted, betrayed, misunderstood, tested, but he refuses to carry hatred into sleep. And here is the final rule. Forgive without reopening the door. Pause with me. Inhale slowly. Hold. Exhale longer. Say it clearly. I release anger, not wisdom. Again, I release anger, not wisdom. This is where most people misunderstand forgiveness. Forgiveness is not surrender. It is not forgetting. It is not inviting harm back into your life. Forgiveness is removing poison from your own bloodstream. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The best revenge is not to be like your enemy." Notice he did not say, pretend the harm did not happen. He said, do not become it. Anger, when stored, transforms into resentment. Resentment is preserved anger, and preserved anger corrodes clarity. Studies in long-term emotional health show that individuals who practice forgiveness experience lower cortisol levels, lower blood pressure, improved immune function, and reduced symptoms of anxiety. Forgiveness is physiological liberation. Reset with me. Inhale deeply. Hold. Exhale slowly. Say it. Resentment hurts me first. Let us go deeper. When someone harms you, two separate processes must occur. First, emotional release. Second, boundary evaluation. Many people confuse the two. They believe forgiveness means access. It does not. You can forgive internally and still close the gate externally. Marcus ruled an empire. He understood mercy, but he also understood order. Some individuals require distance, not revenge. That is Stoic strength. Soft heart, strong gate. Say it with me. Soft heart, strong gate. Forgiveness removes hatred. Boundaries remove repetition. Anger says punish. Wisdom says protect. Consider a relationship where trust was broken. Anger screams confrontation. Ego demands repayment. But Stoic clarity asks, what preserves my integrity? You may forgive the emotional weight to free your mind, but you may also choose to adjust proximity. That is not weakness. That is strategic alignment. Marcus never allowed hatred to distort governance, but he did not ignore patterns of behavior. Forgiveness without naivety. Pause again. Inhale slowly. Hold. Exhale longer. Now let me give you something difficult. Sometimes the person you must forgive most is yourself. Anger turned inward becomes shame. Marcus wrote reflections correcting himself. He admitted impatience. He acknowledged frustration, but he did not drown in self-condemnation. Self-forgiveness is not self-excuse. It is self-correction without self-destruction. Say this slowly. I learn, I adjust, I move forward. Many people replay old arguments for years, rehearsing what they should have said, what they could have done. That mental replay is self-imprisonment. Forgiveness closes the loop. Imagine carrying a backpack filled with stones. Every unresolved anger adds weight. Over time, exhaustion becomes personality. Release one stone at a time. This does not erase memory. It removes emotional charge. Neuroscience shows that when individuals consciously reframe past grievances and practice compassionate reinterpretation, neural stress markers reduce significantly. The brain responds to chosen meaning. Marcus understood that hatred consumes the hater. He wrote, "When you are offended at any man's fault, turn to yourself and study your own failings." That was not self-blame. It was perspective. Perspective shrinks bitterness. Reset with me. Inhale deeply. Hold, exhale slowly. Say it. I choose freedom over bitterness. Here is a ritual you can use tonight. Before sleep, review your day. Ask 3 questions. Where did anger appear? What did it teach me? What can I release now? Visualize placing that anger on the ground and stepping away. Sleep without carrying it. Over time, this builds emotional sovereignty. Marcus practiced nightly reflection, not for fame, but for purification of thought. Forgiveness is purification. Now let us close the circle. You have named the trigger. You have separated fact from interpretation. You have delayed reaction. You have assumed ignorance before malice. You have remembered your role. You have turned anger into training. And now you release what no longer serves you. This is mastery, not suppression, not denial. Mastery. Take one final breath with me. Inhale deeply. Hold. Exhale slowly. Say it clearly. I am not controlled by anger. Again, I am not controlled by anger. If this series shifted your perspective, subscribe to Making Life Better. And here is your final challenge. Comment one word that represents what you are choosing instead of anger. Peace, control, strength, discipline, clarity. One word only. Own it, live it, and remember this. Inner peace is not found in a quiet world. It is built in a trained mind. Before you leave, answer this honestly. How many times has anger cost you something valuable? A relationship, an opportunity, your reputation? Stoicism is not about being cold. It is about being untouchable. Imagine walking into conflict with calm eyes while someone tries to provoke you and fails. That is real power. Most people will hear these rules and forget them tomorrow, but a few will practice them and build discipline. Marcus Aurelius said to waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be and simply be one. If you are serious about mastering your emotions and becoming someone who cannot be shaken, then this is your path. Subscribe to Making Life Better if you choose strength over reaction. Comment the word control below if you are committed to mastering your anger, and stay for the next rule, because what comes next will change how you see every insult for the rest of your life.